sa attendance sa screenshot. Napa si Bisari?
Nga pa siya, ma'am.
Matanan na, ma'am.
Okay. Palihog kong screenshot. Okay, so I think that's it for documentary evidence. Now we will proceed to who is assigned sa best evidence role. Best evidence role.
So, good afternoon each and everyone. Madunggan ako, ma'am.
Yes.
Copy, bye.
Good afternoon each and everyone. So, today, I will report about the best evidence rule. So, or tinatawag po nila original document. Sa ato sa isgutan, anong may natawag na po siya original document. So, before the 2019 proposed sa katong amendment on the administrative matter number 190815, this rule is called the best evidence rule. Pero katong May 1, 2020, then the date of kanang effectivity sa administrative matter nga the rule will now called the original document rule. So this evidence rule is governed by Section 3 and 4, Rule 130 of the Rules of Court. So, ang best evidence rule kaya nag-states that when the subject of inquiry is the contents of the document, no evidence shall be admissible other than the original. So, pag ang subject sa inquiry kay ang content wala admissible nga lain evidence aside sa katong original. So ang kaning amendment wala lang siya nag-limit sa applicability bitaw sa rule sa mga documents, but it now includes the kanang sa writing, recording, photograph or other record. So ang best evidence rule or original document rule must be presented in court. It is a rule of kanang preference. It excludes the secondary evidence once the original is available. So ang i-excludes niya ang kanang secondary nga evidence pag ang original document kay available. So what do we mean by original document? So pag mo ingon tag original document, so this is the document itself or kanang any counterpart na intended to have the same effect by a person executing or issuing it. Mo na ang original document. Then next kay ang photograph. So ang photograph kay an original of photograph, it includes the negative or any printer from like for example kanang if the data is kanang stored siya sa computer or kanang similar device or any printouts or other output na readable by our site or other means shown to reflect the data accurately mataw na siya original. So next how about the duplicate copies, are they considered original? Yes, ang mga duplicate copies are considered original but subject to condition because ang duplicate kay counterpart diya po siya sa kanang gi-produce by the same kanang impression or the same impression as original or form of the same matrix or kanang by means of photography katong akong giikuan ganina. Then it includes po kanang mga enlargement or other nga equivalent kanang technique which accurately gi-produce ang katong isa ka original mo na yung duplicate copy. So when is duplicate not admissible? So naay duha ka reason when duplicate not admissible. First kay if ang genuine nga katong document kay i-raise the question bitay ang authenticity like for example kanang it was alleged nga ang original kay fake. So if fake ang original, fake pud ang duplicate. Then second kay in the circumstances nga if kanang it is unjust or kanang inequitable to admit that the duplicate in lieu of the original. Then next kay when the original is presented. So number one kay if katong ako ganina states nga if the subject of inquiry is the contents of the document. So mona when the original is presented. Then second kay when a testimony of a witness refers to the contents of written document. Then third kay kanang when the um when the um when the when the when the original does not apply even if an existing and available kanang available nga original document is involved. Then next kay first instant when the original must be presented. So first kay if the subject of inquiry is the content of the document kasi this means the cause of the action or the cause of the action is based on what are contained in the document is the terms and conditions katong entries, data or information written on the document. Like for example, si A kay na siya utang kang B nga 10 million dayon na sila promissory note nga si A mobayad within 10 days pero mobayad siya ka A within 10 days pero wala siya ni bayad. Ang katong promissory note nga mobayad si A after kanang within 10 days pwede to niya gamiton nga promissory note or document para singlo niya si A pag maabot na ka ng sa court ba. Then next second instance kay when a testimony of a witness refers to the contents of a written document. Like for example, the complainant kanang nag-testify that based on the written agreement, the respondent should give him kanang 10 sacks of rice every month. So since the complainant testimony refers to the contents of a written document, such document should be presented in the court. Ito, mana siyang example sa second instance. Dayon third instance when the original must be presented when the rules does not apply even if an existing and available original document is involved. So this happened kay kanang when the contents of the document were never disputed, such as kanang when the question refers to the external facts about the document such as whether to exist or not, whether it was kanang executed, sent, received, or delivered. Dayon di kay when the writing is merely collateral fact, as when a witness refers to writing of a conversation which he heard kanang nadungganan niya and then jotted down. Then C kay when the contents were admitted kana. Then last kay the writings is treated as an object, it will be treated as object evidence. Then to kay when there was a failure and under oath the due kanang execution and sa ug ang genuineness sa document. Then third kay ang waiver by the adverse party. So ang best evidence rule na siya kanang diba, when the subject of inquiry is the contents of the document, no evidence shall be admissible other than the original document itself, except sa mga following cases. Una kay ang original kay nawala or na-destroy or dili ma-produce sa court bitaw anang without bad faith on the part of the offeror. Dayon second kay pag ang original kay naa sa custody or under sa control sa party against whom the evidence is offered, and if the latter fails to produce it, So if the latter kanang na fails to produce it offer reasonable notice, then baka tulo kay ang kanang when ang original kay nag-consist bitaw siya mga numerous accounts or other documents kanang which cannot be kanang examined sa court, mas kinahanglan siya kuan ba kanang dako nga oras bitaw kanang without the great loss of time, and the facts also to be established kay katurang pag numerous contents ay numerous accounts ang kuan kay ang katong general result or ang whole result maura to ang ilang ikuan establish for them ay ilang i-establish. Then sunod kay when the original is a public record or kanang under sa custody sa public officer or is recorded in a public office, dayon mao na to ma'am.
Okay, let's proceed to the next reporter Gabby na time. Ugma na nato ni ikuan discuss.
Next reporter na ma'am, ate kay Mabe. Ate ma'am. So what is secondary evidence? Secondary evidence is a copy of an original document. Secondary evidence is also a proof of facts like primary evidence. This means that secondary evidence is the evidence presented as an alternative to the primary evidence. For example, aning kuan ma'am, secondary evidence ma'am is for example that birth certificate of an individual. For example is that na nag-issue of PSA birth certificate ang PSA, so katong original ato ma'am is mo to'y matawag nato nga primary or original document. And the moment nga ato ana siyang ipa-xerox or ipa-photocopy, mo na to'y matawag nato nga secondary evidence. So for example is that is na wala na to ato ang PSA birth certificate, so ang mahimo tong alternative nga evidence is katong ang ato ang gipa-photocopy or gipa-xerox nga PSA birth certificate, which is matawag na to nga secondary evidence. So next slide. Next slide natin. Sige ho. So when to produce and use secondary evidence. So kailan natin ipoproduce or ipapakita at gagamitin ang secondary evidence. So first is when the original document has been lost or destroyed and the cause of its unavailability is without bad faith on his part of the offeror. So ang gi-refer ani sa first sentence is that, for example, yung birth certificate natin is nawala or nasira. For example is that tinangay ng baha, nasunog yung bahay at kinain ng anay. So ang offeror doon is that hindi niya sinasadya yung mga nangyari na nawala at nasira yung kanyang original document. So kaya doon na niya in that moment paglalabas na siya at ipapakita niya yung secondary evidence niya, which is yung photocopy or xerox copy ng kanyang birth certificate. So second, when original copy of evidence is public document. For example, aning document is katong mga matikitan bitaw mo sa karsada, which is katong tawag ng issue. So di ba the moment na mo sulat sila sa ilang stop or katong resibo, ilang maghatag. Ang ilang maghatag pa ito ang turista is katong na ilalom sa carbon. Ang katong ipaatang sa carbon. Ang katong original na palitan. Mo to ang ilahang ipusot. So ang katong ilang gihipos nga mao yung gisutan mo to ang original document na katong secondary document is katong gihatag sa inyo ang naalang gilutaan lang sa carbon copy. So for example is nawala gyapon tong kuan ninyo katong gihatag sa issue na secondary document which is katong nasa carbon, mo ato na pud mo dito sa public officer para mangayo mo sa certified copy dito sa original document nga ticket. So, third one, when the document is possessed by any person who is beyond reach. Who is beyond reach, ang refer niya is beyond reach sila sa court o beyond reach sila sa offeror. Or any person who is legally obligated to produce the same but does not produce it, even after issuance of notice or reasonable notice. So, ang explanation kaya is that, for example, ang isa ka individual is nasa kanya yung original document or primary evidence. But though binigyan natin sila ng reasonable notice na kinakailangan lang ipakita o ipalabas yung original document, is that they still fail to show and mapakita yung original document, doon na papasok yung secondary evidence. So, bali magiging chain reaction ito. First is yung hindi nila ipinakita o ipinalabas yung original document, at then after that, doon na papasok yung secondary evidence, o doon na yung offeror maglalabas ng secondary evidence. So, next slide. So, when original document is lost, the proof of its content should be proved by, first is, yun nga yung sinabi ko sa, for example, ko kanina, yung birth certificate, by a copy thereof, which is, of course, yung copy. The second is by recital of its content in an authentic document. So, for example, nawala na yun o nasira na yung original document, ang yung offeror is that magre-recite siya ng mga nakapaloob or yung content doon sa certain document. For example, is that yung titulo ng lupa. So, ang titulo ng lupa is, ang ginanalaman doon is that sino yung previous owner at kung sino yung nakabili ng certain na lupa, at kung sino-sino yung mga nasa boundaries nito. So, by that, third is by recollection of witness. So, of course, mahirap naman yung mag-represent ka sa court ng isang kopya ng isang original document at magre-recite ka ng content ng isang document kung wala kang witness na to provide sa korte. So, next slide. Next slide, ate. So, the correct order of proof to introduction of secondary evidence. So, ito na yung mga order para mag-introduce ka na sa korte ng secondary evidence. So, first is existence. Of course, hindi ka pwedeng maglabas sa court ng isang secondary evidence kung wala namang primary evidence. So, second is execution. So, dito sa execution is that ang tinatakol dito is the question of who. For example, who executed the document, o sino yung gumawa ng dokumento at sino yung ina-acknowledge ng dokumento. For example, is that yung example ko kanina, which is kung sino yung for example is that nakapaloob doon sa dokumento is that Mr. Musur is binenta niya yung Rusi 150 niya doon kay Mr. Coderos sa halagang 50,000. At sa execution naman, doon din nakakalagay kung sino yung mga taong pumirma at sino yung pagbigay ng dokumento doon sa dalawang tao. At sino yung mga nakarinig or yung present sa paggawa at pagbigay ng dokumento. And the third one is loss. Sa pagtatako ng loss is that meron itong procedure na dapat sundin. For example is that sinabi nung offeror na nawala na yung original document, but the offeror needs to have a procedure na maiprove na yan na wala talaga yung original document, o hindi na siya or wala na talaga sa kanya yung original document. For example is that hahalugin niya talaga yung buong bahay, yung mga lugar kung saan niya pwedeng ilagay yung certain document at iba pa. So next is contents. So contents can be proved by yung kanina by previous slides ate. So, dito ipo-proof yung contents, which is ang photocopy, recital, at recollection of witness. Dito mapapatunayan yung buong katotohanan ng contents doon sa original at secondary document. So, next slide, number 6. So, requisites for the admissibility of secondary document. Opponent's possession or control of the original document. So, ito yung sinabi ko kanina na, for example, a certain party or a certain person has the control of the original document, of course, meron silang original document at meron din ang offeror na secondary evidence. Second, reasonable notice to the opponent to produce the original document. So, ito na natakol ko rin po kanina na, for example, nagbigay ka na ng reasonable notice doon sa certain party na ipalabas niya yung original document, but still they failed to produce the original document. So, yung secondary evidence. So, third is satisfactory proof of its existence. So, ang makapagpapatunay lamang nito sa kanyang existence is the court, which is ang court yung magbibigay or mag-provide ng chosen auditor para mag-check at mag-prove na talagang yung secondary evidence is yung secondary evidence katulad ng original document. Yung content at yung mga tao, pero nga at ay magkaugnay. So last is failure of or refusal of opponents to produce the original in court. So for example is yung certain party is nag-fail sila na mag-produce ng original document, yung opponent party nila, yun yung mag-provide ng secondary evidence. And later on, yung certain party na nagko-control ng original document is pagbabawalan na sila ng korte na mag-produce ng original document para mag-rebuttal sa secondary evidence. So, masih mag-end na po ang topic. So, that ends my topic and thank you.
Madunggan na ko, ma'am. Yes, buddy. Good afternoon, everyone. So, my report is all about parole evidence. So parole evidence, any evidence, alyundi which is instead or vary or contradict a complete and enforceable agreement embodied in a document. So, it may refers to testimonial, real, or documentary evidence. So, what is alyundi means? So, alyundi means from another place or outside source. So, parole evidence rule. A rule in evidence which states that when the terms of agreement have been reduced to writing, it is considered as containing all the terms agreed upon. Under terms to writing, it is considered as containing all the terms agreed upon, and there can be between parties and their successors in interest no evidence in such terms other than the contest of writing agreement. So, parole evidence is stated in a negative way, that is when the agreement of the party is reduced in writing, there is no other evidences to prove the contents or the agreement of the parties other than written agreement itself. So, take note, parole evidence is evidence outside of the agreement. Parole evidence is evidence of the agreement of the parties, while the parole evidence rule prevents the presentation of such parole evidence. So, requisites for its application. Number 1, there must be a valid contract. So, ang agreement must be 2. Terms of the agreement is to writing. So, the agreement here includes the successors and interest. So, dispute meaning alitan or arguments. So, panay alitan or arguments. The 3. 4, there is a dispute as to the terms of agreement. So, nadya po ay alitan or argument. So, exceptions to the parole evidence. 1. Failure of the written agreement to express the true intent of the parties thereto. So, for example, sa 1, si Juan at Jose nagkasundo na ang sasakyan ni Juan ay rerentahan lang ni Jose, buwan-buwan. At pagkatapos, ibabalik din ni Jose. Kaso, ang nakalagay pala sa kasulatan ay si Juan, binibenta niya ang sasakyan kay Jose. At ang buwan ng bayad ay paunang bayad sa sasakyan. So, ang nakasulat, ang ilang gisabutan ni Jose Juan kay kuan lang daw, rentahan lang daw ang sakyanan. Pero ang nakabutang yun sa written agreement kay ibaligya di ay ang sakyanan. 2. Intrinsic ambiguity, mistake, or imperfection in the written agreement. So, balikan na niyo niya kay naman ni siya 3 ka ambiguities. So, 3, validity of the written agreement. Wala talaga silang pinagkasunduan. So, or kanang walay valid lang written agreement. Or, the existence of other terms agreed to by the parties of their certification of the written agreement. So, ambiguity. Ambiguity, meaning sa ambiguity refers to uncertain or doubt in the document. So, nasa doubt sa mga documents. So, direta sa kinds of ambiguity, which is ang intrinsic, extrinsic, of intermediate. So, wait sa mama. So, there is an intrinsic or latent ambiguity. Curable ni siya by evidence of aliunde. So, latent, intrinsic or latent ambiguity is further subdivided in 2 parts. So, nasa 2 ka parts, which is ang 1, when the description of the person of property is clear, but it turns out the description fits 2 or more. So, clear daw ang description sa person, pero ang description daw kay fit daw sa 2 ka person or more. So, example, the donor describes his aunt, Jane, but the donor has several aunts named Jane. So, ang donor daw kay i-describe daw siya sa iyang aunt nga Jane, nga iyang auntie nga si Jane. Pero, ang donor, dagan daw auntie nga pangalan kay Jane. So, dira, mo na pasabot sa first nga part sa Latin ambiguity. So, second, where the description of the person or object is imperfect or erroneous, so as to leave doubt what person or object is referred to. So, example, the money should be tuition fee of my son who is enrolled in the UST. But her daughter enrolled in UST while the son is enrolled in San Beda. So, libog siya kung anon. Kay ningon, ang description man niya diri sa kuan kay ang gingon man diri sa kaduha nga part kay where the description of person or object is imperfect. So, wala nagkakuan inside the description. Ang nasa 2 ka anak, which is ang young daughter og son, ang iyang gingon dito sa description kay iyang son daw is pila sa UST. Nga, para daw pambayad to sa tuition fee. While ang sa tinuod ay ang iyang anak kay or son niya kay the San Beda din school. Pero ang iyang daughter kay maumay sa UST. So libog iyang pagkuhan sa. So ang reason ani sa intrinsic or latent ambiguity is reason for the exemption of intrinsic ambiguity to the parole evidence rule. The introduction of oral testimony does not vary or contradict the document, but it aids the court in ascertaining and interpreting the document, thereby enabling it to give effect and life to the document. So, 2, intrinsic or patent ambiguity. So, intrinsic means apparent on the face of writing and requires that something be added to make the meaning certain. So, dapat daw para makuha daw ang isa ka document kay dapat daw mo add daw og certain meaning. So, it cannot be cured by evidence aliunde. So, dili daw mag-cured sa evidence aliunde. So, ang ibalik na ko, ang meaning sa aliunde is from another place or outside source. It cannot be cured by evidence aliunde. Ang is extrinsic or patent ambiguity because it is only intrinsic ambiguity, that extrinsic ambiguity which serves an exemption to the parole evidence rule. Thus, no amount of evidence will clear the ambiguity. So, 3, intermediate ambiguity. So, ambiguity consists in the use of words susceptible of two or more interpretation. So, the intermediate ambiguity is curable by evidence aliunde. So, for example, the written agreement is stated that the currency that should be used in paying is dollar. So, what dollar are you referring to? So, ang sa written agreement kay ingon dito daw sa example, ingon siya nga ang pag-pay daw is $5 pero wala gi specific kung nga tumanay sa intermediate ambiguity. Okay.
Na si Maulana?